please have a motion and a second to reconvene the public meeting? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of our servicemen and women? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the district clerk please call the roll?
Mrs. Iannatelli. Present. Mrs. Di Lorenzo. Present. Mrs. Napolitano-Ferno.
Present.
Dr. Centermore.
Present.
Mrs. Mallon.
Present.
Mr. Murphy.
Present.
Mr. Odifar.
Yes, I'm here.
Mrs. Poppy. Present. And Mr. Hauser.
Present.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of the August 8, 2023 meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Can I please have a motion and a second to approve the second reading and adoption of policy 5100, attendance?
Second.
Any questions on that? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. And now we will have an update from our superintendent, Dr. Centermore.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. I hope the summer continues to be going well, and the excitement is building. A couple of weeks to go before our students arrive, although we have seen students all throughout the summer, which is wonderful, between our summer programs, the enrichment, and then this week with the start of our fall high school athletic programs. I've had the opportunity last night, this morning, to make the rounds and visit. The numbers are amazing in terms of the turnout, the number of students in this district that are involved in those programs. Certainly our marching band, was very active this summer. It's just wonderful to see so many of Connect students engaged in all kinds of extra co-curricular activities. And now you really feel that energy and excitement building as we get close to the start of school. Very exciting. An opportunity just to provide a little clarity. I know recently within the public realm, particularly via social media, there was some minutes that made its way into the social media with regards to a Connect Teachers Association update that was put out to their membership from last year, from mid-year, roughly February, and that when it went out on the social media, it raised some parental concerns that were brought to the district's attention. And so this created an opportunity for us to meet with the leadership of our Teachers Association, the president, vice president, and they want me to make sure that I express to everyone that there was context was a key theme in terms of looking at those minutes, and for people who were involved in the discussion back around mid-year, to just read, what is essentially a quick summary of an extensive conversation and dialogue, things could be taken out of context. And one of the points that they wanted to emphasize, and certainly with me speaking tonight, because we just met, was how much our teachers love, appreciate, respect all of Connect students, and certainly and especially those students who have special needs. So in terms of the context, it's centered around communication, training, strategies to help our teachers address student needs while still maintaining a safe and conducive learning environment within the classroom setting, especially. With, again, the communication piece is always huge, and training and guidance, and a key component being behavior plans and the need to revisit and revise as needed, to help both any particular student in question who's having the challenges, certainly our staff who are working and servicing them, to best be able to meet those needs while also addressing the needs of all the students and other staff who may be, within the learning environment. I do hope, that meeting that we had was very productive, and I do hope that this provides some clarity in terms of context, to those minutes that were posted recently. Again, from last year, mid-year. Again, minutes are a summary of a more extensive conversation. I do hope that I've conveyed their thoughts and sincere feelings about our students, especially with a couple weeks to go into the school year. So I appreciate that opportunity to provide that clarity. In terms of the summer, I mentioned the athletics starting yesterday. I'd like to thank SEPTA for this past Friday evening. They held a wonderful ice cream social to kind of get us going in the right direction for the start of the school year. Wonderful event right in the backyard over here at Sycamore. Very well attended. Certainly thank our parents for coming out with their families. I know this time of year everyone is who has children in the district. They're waiting for those schedules to arrive, those teacher assignments. So at the secondary level, to middle schools, to high school, those secondary schedules will be released within a day or so via the parent portal, and early next week, hopefully Monday, the same will occur with regards to the elementary schedules. Buses. So we have our own fleet. We do contract some runs and routes with Suffolk Transportation. So the district is fully routed, and bus passes have gone out. Some still need to go out, and that will occur. And of course, if there was any misprints or misinformation on a bus pass, Transportation is actively working on making those edits and corrections. Later this week, with our drivers, next week for the Suffolk drivers, they'll be doing what we call the dry runs, the practice runs, to be familiar with the routes, so we could hit the ground running. The wheels on the bus go round and round for the start of the school year. A big theme, a big focus of our Board of Education, the administration, for the 23-24 school year is we're going to promote all that is awesome and excellent in our district, all the great work that is being done by our staff, support staff, teachers, administration, okay, all the fabulous work and efforts and accomplishments of our students, 5,300 strong. That's a major, major theme with this school year. And so one of the things that we're looking to do is kind of expand our digital print with the good and positive utilization of social media. So we're going to be adding an Instagram component to that, and we are looking to really do a full court press on this promotion. I'm in the process of working on a back to school video, short and sweet, because I know you don't want to hear and see too much of me. You really want to focus on the kids, and we're looking to incorporate that throughout the year. Again, when there's good news about our staff and our students, our community at large, we want to promote it. And there is a lot of good news. There is a lot to be proud of and to celebrate. And that is going to be our charge this school year. Thank you.
Thank you. On to Board of Ed topics. We have public comment policy. Is that you, Jackie?
Was that something you were going to, Jesse? Were we going to remove it, or were you going to say something? I don't remember.
It was a different one that we originally had that I had emailed you guys about last week. I think this one kind of goes with it, so if you want, we could just postpone this to the next meeting as well.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were
Perfect.
doing with the other explanations.
Okay.
All right, great, thank you. Public enrollment update on class sizes.
Yeah.
Jackie.
Yeah, that's me.
Yep.
I had asked about advocating for putting a TA in classes with more than 22 students. I did see and I understand that John Pearl's going to have a 5th grade class with 24 students, only one class. I want to be fiscally responsible, so I understand that splitting it to 12 might not be conducive, but I do have an issue with what are we gonna do if one or two more students join that class? Then I see that we have other schools, let me just see where I am here. It is, so John Pearl has a 24. I see we have a kindergarten class, 22, an idle hour. I see we have Slocum, fourth grade class, 22, 23. I'm just saying at these numbers, you guys always say to me that when it gets closer to school, the numbers could actually go up. We had that happen, I remember at Cherokee one year, where we had to split the class like a few days before, or a week before, and had to change things up. I'm just trying to understand what are we putting in to support the teachers. I wanted to advocate years ago for that TA. I know that we're having a hard time getting TAs as well, so that could become problematic. But I do want to make sure that it's available and that we don't frown upon it. I don't want any teachers to feel like they can't ask for help because, again, we're all human, and if they need support in the classroom, we should give it to them. If it means that their success and the student's success rides on it, I think we should make sure that we give whatever support we can. Especially when everyone knows I've always been really against having big class sizes. I understand the financial piece, but I also understand when you have 24 fifth graders, and I know that's a fifth grade class, but now you go with a 22 kindergartners, so some kids aren't even classified yet. Some children might have special needs or need special services of some sort, and now you have one teacher in there. We still have an aide in the kindergarten, right? So there's at least an aide there. But can we advocate for more in the event that they need it? And also, if more students are put into that class. I just don't want to see classes turn to 26. And we've had that happen, where classes go to 26 last minute or more because, kids came into the school district last minute. So I just want to make sure that it's on record. I would like to make sure that we give whatever support we can.
If I could just respond. If you have it, and I think you brought this up, if you have a scenario where in a particular grade there's only one class, sometimes to the public, if you hear the word a section, we use that term a lot with the secondary, but if you hear the term section, it equates to a class. So that in that scenario, and you did reference this, right now we're looking at 24, it was a fifth grade class. So if you split that class,
It's 12. Right?
that creates 12. So when you have those, and another term that's used is singleton, a single section, a single class. And then, then you have 24, 25, 26, and you look at splitting, now all of a sudden you have a very low, class size. And obviously, when you start splitting classes, now you're talking about trying to hire a teacher, last second. Sometimes that need arises, and the budget does have those contingencies that are built in, if that's the case. So certainly, especially, and if you don't mind, I'll use that fifth grade at John Pearl as an example. If all of a sudden the fifth grade there, spiked a bit, but it still wasn't conducive to split. And that's the other thing, we send out the class assignments next week, and now it's it's the Friday of Labor Day weekend, and we ask the principal, do us a favor, go on the phone, call the 20-some-odd parents, and and say, hey, would you mind if we put you in a different class? And that becomes, or let's say it's the day or two after Labor Day, that does present as a challenge. So I think what you're saying is if we see in any particular area, and we have support in place at the kindergarten level, they're just entering
Right.
our system,
I want to make sure with
that we could certainly, have conversations, myself, Ms. Poppy, the cabinet, with our building principals, any other, director that comes into play, and look at the situation and say, does this particular class need some additional support? Maybe it's not the whole day. Maybe they could use a little support for part of the day. Maybe it's based on, whether it's during math or during, literacy, whatever the case may be. We can look at that and we can make sound educational decisions that will meet the needs and address, this area.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, and I second your need for TAs, and if any teacher feels the need to come on and ask for help. CTA meeting minutes, Jackie DiLorenzo.
Yeah, that was, and thank you, Dr. Centimore, for your, your update on that. I had a few other questions that, came from, some of the parents, and it was regarding the certifications and the professional development that they take. And we did learn that they do go for a CPI certification. So I just had a few questions about that this is not, this CPI certification, if you can just maybe provide a little more detail on what exactly that is and if it's a requirement, how many staff are CPI certified, and how many of the teachers and supports that take courses either for that or other courses, professional development courses, to better understand the children they work with regards to dyslexia, autism, physical disabilities, anything like that. How are they keeping up with what they need to do to help the children that they serve?
Well, I'll start on at any point, Ms. Poppy and I, we could certainly take a tag team approach to this, and certainly she can help drill down a little bit more to some of those specifics. So, with this concern that came out through the social media, presented opportunity for me in terms of being able to sit with Ms. O'Hara, our Director of Special Education, and Ms. Poppy, and our teacher leadership, in terms of, my understanding was this conversation that occurred mid-year, was necessitated based on a series of, events that had occurred in various classrooms, various schools, with some challenging behavioral situations. And one of the themes, that's why context is so important, one of the themes really did center on training, professional development, available resources, strategies, and especially communication, because it's one thing to know your roster on day one, but the school year is 180 plus days, and we can have a child's scenario change via the CSE process with classification and first establishing an IEP or a 504 plan. You could have children that move into the district mid-year, even late in the year, and just ensuring that there is the communication of not only with the main classroom teacher, if we're talking the elementary level, or the main subject area teachers, and I hate to use that term because to me everybody is a main area teacher, but make sure you're capturing the music, the physical education, the art, and all those critical areas. So communication was a big theme. You referenced the response to behavioral interventions in terms of CPI training. That was specifically brought up during this conversation. We've had a large number of teachers trained in it. That training will be ongoing. And Ms. Poppy, I'll just take that baton and pass it to you if you want to then add on to that part of the conversation.
So CPI training is available every summer to our teachers, our TAs as well. And it is a voluntary basis. This summer, we're happy to report that we've trained 132 staff members, which is a number that nearly doubles our numbers from 2 previous years. So we're excited to report that information. In addition, especially during the spring last year, we had a unique opportunity with the second Superintendent's Conference Day to provide some responsive sessions and training and professional development for our teachers that are related to some of the behavioral situations that provoked some of the discussion that Dr. Centimore was referencing, and that were reflected in the minutes of that meeting that has been called into question. And so we have been doing our best to remain responsive to the teachers' needs. They are, identifying for us the challenges that they are encountering in the classroom, and they're asking for help, in the same vein of requesting support. And we are doing our best to remain responsive to those requests, to provide support, at the moment where they're experiencing these challenges, and to look forward in the long view to see how we can continue to support our faculty and staff to negotiate these different situations.
I just want to add something real quick.
Go ahead, I'll go after you.
I know that, I don't know if this has anything to do with what you brought up, Jackie, but when a child has a special education service, there's a prominent feature on the attendance for the teachers that will let them know that they have this service available to them. I don't know if there's a way to make it more prominent or to train the teachers to be on the lookout better for it, because I've heard from different parents that their child isn't getting the service and the teacher was unaware that they needed that service. So if there was a way to either make it more prominent or have the teachers be more aware or show them where it is exactly on the attendance roster.
So we do have a process, an annual process, where teachers have to acknowledge that they are in receipt of that information and they have a working knowledge of where to access that information. I think that perhaps some of those situations that come into play, may be a result of a number of different factors, including changes that happen to students' accommodations across the school year. And some of the challenges related to communication are things that we've certainly heard about. And Ms. O'Hara is working hard to kind of shore up those communication feedback loops so that everybody remains in the know. It certainly, in a district this size, it presents its own set of challenges to communicate clearly and effectively every time. And these are things that we are certainly looking at critically, because we know that have had instances like the ones that you're describing in terms of people not being fully in the know in terms of specific accommodations and situations relevant to students' needs in the classroom.
I think the
Thank
issue
you.
too is that we had this issue a few times last year and the year prior, and I've spoken to you about it when it comes to special education. There are so many students who don't present. They don't present the I guess normal features that other students do, because I've had teachers and I've had parents say to me, it's because this student does so well academically, or this student doesn't present because they are so social, or whatever the case may be, so they just miss it. And everyone's human. So the human error, that's what I was actually moving on to for special education services, but I'm going to bring it into the minutes because it's actually for the same kind of talk. It was when I had sent the questions of several special education questions in regards to what the grant money is being used for this year.
Well, I just have one more question about what you just spoke about.
Okay, that's what this
okay.
is. I'm going into
Oh,
it.
okay.
It's for the minutes. How we are helping support these students and families in the upcoming years, because we saw on the minutes, some parents got annoyed by the minutes. I totally understand, but I myself am in a union, so I understand that they're having a meeting. It's their minutes, so we have to kind of look at it from a different lens and say the way that they're speaking is more with their peers to say, hey, I need support in the classroom. I'm never going to have an issue with parents asking for support, nor am I going to have an issue with teachers or any other union asking for support. If people need help, we should be giving it as much as we can. It's when people say they don't need help. I don't do that. Like that's where I come in and I'm like, no, the people who are admitting, hey, we need help, we need support, we don't feel supported, we have a lot of special needs in our class, or we have anxiety, or the pandemic was just over, we have all this built up, we don't feel like we're getting enough help. I said here, I also would like to advocate for added special education teacher support and professional development programs, as well as adding resources, meaning if we can I know we're having an issue with TAs, but we have to look at other creative ways, maybe with teachers working together, or if there's and I understand with inclusion, but maybe there's other ways. Maybe there's a way for us to look into what can we do with stipends, what can we do with helping a teacher if they have a lot of issues in a class, behavioral, and you don't know about it until 2 months into the school year. You're not going to be moving kids' schedules, especially in the secondary level. It's very hard. So I just think we need to look at those CTA minutes sometimes from a different lens, to say maybe they were calling out for help, and maybe we should take it that way instead of taking it as, like, from a parent standpoint, maybe I'd be like, well, my poor kids, I don't want them talked about like that. But at the same time, those minutes are meant for a union. to discuss it's their outline of what they were discussing. And as long as they're asking for help and they feel unsupported, maybe we need to do a better job at making them feel supported, especially with special education. Because if the teacher is successful, then the students are successful.
I just wanted to circle back. You said that the teacher has to acknowledge that they have a IEP or 504 student on their attendance?
That they have received the document, yes.
So every teacher
There's an
has to then respond to that?
There is an acknowledgement process, correct.
Okay. I think that maybe as a district, we need to be more on top of that. You know, I will say that, like she said, my daughter skipped all the time and no one knows she has a 504. But every time I contact a teacher, like I said too, they are so responsive and so nice and, you know, they're fine. But I do find that it's missed almost every year that she has this 504. And the first test comes and then, you know, they say, oh, you know, we realized we gave her the wrong test. So I just think there should be more maybe accountability on, not even just the teacher, because again, they have so many students, and especially on secondary and high school, you have so many, you know, classes going through, that maybe, you know, someone's checking to make sure everybody actually saw these, you know, and I know they're highlighted in, I think, green, blue, or, you know, whatever it is, but, you know, maybe something more prominent, because I'm not sure what the highlight looks like. But again, the teachers are
I will-
always responsive.
I will be meeting with the district's administrative team this week, and it will be one of the items that I will review with them in terms of making sure. And I understand at the secondary level, you know, you don't have 20 kids, you have 100 plus. But it's you know, there are things called professional responsibilities, and I know our staff embrace that. You know, but these are legal obligations, part of regulation, and, you know, a big part of our commitment to meeting the needs of our students is those who have these type of plans, IEPs, 504s, any other types of response to intervention services that have been put into play, they have to be followed. And everybody has to be on board from day one with that.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything on that?
I want to just like ask what we're doing with that grant money, if you guys were able to find out, only because I know that special education last year did get a rather large sum, and the way that I was told last year when I sat down with you and Mrs. O'Hara was that you guys were working on making facilities more conducive and friendly to special needs students. And I was very happy to hear that, especially playgrounds and things like that. But what were we doing on the educational arena to try to help these kids catch up? Especially, like, it was bad enough for, and I say this with general ed students, but with the special ed students, we saw them fall behind even more so during the pandemic, that's what I was told from you guys.
So we have a number of different ways that we've been able to expend grant monies, and I can get a more detailed explanation of those expenditures from Ms. O'Hara. She does have a number of special education grants that are dedicated to servicing our special education population, and some of the ways that she's expended those funds were to enhance our facilities, right? So we've talked about the boards that are fixed in Basti Elementary and that are going to be fixed in Sycamore Elementary. And so we're looking to expand some of the physical aspects. She's also got some opportunity to expand our software subscriptions to provide additional supports for special education students. She's furnished our secondary special education classrooms with classroom libraries that are specific to the students' needs who are in those classrooms. So I can get a very detailed list from her in terms of those expenditures, but those are some examples of ways that we've infused that money into our buildings and our programs to help our children be as successful as they can be in their educational environment.
Thank you. I like I said, I would just like to see this year some of the money go directly to the students who are struggling the most in trying to bring them up to the level they need to be at so that they can be successful.
Thank you. Gaggle, Jackie DiLorenzo?
Yeah, okay, yes, that was me. So let me explain first what I learned about Gaggle, which I had only heard of recently. It's a company that claims to be, they've been around for about 20 years. And they manage student safety on school privilege technology. They were actually partnered with New York State PTA from back in 2019. They claim to have helped districts across the country protect students, avoid tragedies, and save lives by monitoring, responding to safety issues and threats, using a robust combination of both artificial intelligence and trained safety experts to provide real-time analysis and review of students' use of online collaboration platforms such as Google's G Suite for Education, Microsoft Office 365, and Canvas. The CEO, Jeff Patterson, states that they're focused on preventing tragedies by proactively identifying and supporting students who are personally struggling through real-time content analysis of school-issued devices. Their partnership with New York State PTA will help schools in New York create a safe learning environment that positively impacts students, which sounds, we all want them to be safe. But there have been some concerns that really came up out of, really from remote learning, because they were saying that the software allows educators to track what students were doing while on the school devices. They were being constantly monitored, these students. So parents were becoming concerned, especially because the company, the CEO has said that they have the name, email, grade, and school of these students. They say that they need this information to alert the schools. As far as other things I learned about it, they track online file storage, inbound, outbound email, attachments, links to websites. But there has been a concern recently, actually, in Hauppauge School District, where a child was having a Snapchat conversation, not on a school-issued device, and the school district was able to see this conversation because of Gaggle. So there were really many concerns that have arisen due to privacy, as much as it, it seeks to help. And so I wanted to ask, do we have Gaggle? Do we have any kind of partnership with it or anything like it? That's my concern. Thank you.
We have a product that is similar to Gaggle, and I don't know anything about Gaggle. We have purchased a product called Securely, which is our monitoring system for students' use on our district-issued devices. That is Chromebooks, iPads, any devices that are issued for student use through the district. Securely provides us with a monitoring service wherein we're able to see what types of sites students are attempting to access. Most of the questionable websites are blocked within our system. They're filtered and they're blocked by our Sonic Wall. And so we still receive notifications when students make these attempts, though, and we're able to react to them if needed. The software goes pretty far in depth, and we have an internal notification system in terms of, which students are attempting to access which websites. In addition, if students are working within the Google Classroom, within the Google domain, and they are indicating that through their writing that their actions are questionable in nature, will receive alerts accordingly as well. So we can call it tracking or monitoring. Really, that's the purpose of the software. And we've been using Securely, I believe, for the last 2 years, 2 full school years. We've deepened our use of Securely in that monitoring feature. A lot of that conversation came about once we were fully one-to-one and realized that we were sending our children home with these devices, weren't collecting them at the end of the school year. And we were concerned about anything that we could potentially be missing over the summer months. If a student was in crisis and they were using their Chromebook as an outlet to help themselves through that crisis, we were concerned about having the ability to respond to that as a district. So Securely provides us with some of that monitoring oversight, so we're able to do that remotely.
There were concerns too about that, even if a parent was on their phone in their child's Google Classroom and they happened to save something to their phone or write something, the school gets a notification about that. Those were the concerns that came up with Gaggle, that it was going beyond just protecting students. They were literally able to see everything. So that was part of the concern with that. So just as long as we are within, we have to protect students, of course, but, there's a privacy that has to be maintained as well, so.
Yes, 100%. So, Google has its own level of tracking, and we're able to see how students are trafficking within our Google domain, right? And that's separate and apart from Securely. That's kind of a different process and maybe more of what you're referring to, right? So if somebody accesses a Google Classroom from an external domain, what are we able to see? What are we able to discern from that access point? This is a different conversation from the Securely piece. Securely is particularly looking at what is happening within our student accounts on our Chromebooks, on our devices. You're welcome.
Thank you. Mad Science, Jackie DiLorenzo.
Yes, that's me. I know I have some very unusual terms on there. Mad Science is actually, I just wanted to advocate for them possibly to come here. They were at the library over the weekend for an event, and they were really wonderful. And the kids they loved it. It was for kids up to 5th grade, and it was an hour-long event of just all different experiments, and it was really fantastic. They really loved it. We had the one scientist that we had, her name was Vicky Voltage, and we absolutely loved her. So I love to see education made fun. I think that's the best way kids learn. That's what I try to do at work, because I do a lot of STEM, and to see them really engage in something so educational and love it. And I thought this particular company, and I can give you the link or anything, they were called Mad Science. So I just wanted to advocate perhaps an assembly or something just for our elementary students, because they just loved it. It was great.
Ms. Poppy, maybe they might be on the BOCES Arts and Education. Go ahead, take it.
And
Is it
just-
free, or is it a fee?
I didn't look into it that far. We just had it as an event at the library, and the kids loved it. So I said I would love to see us look into it possibly for something here.
We can certainly check it out. Just this morning, we were having some conversations with the elementary principals and our curriculum directors. One of the topics of discussion was our elementary science program for 23-24. We can see if we can coordinate some connections between this program and our curriculum and see if we can enhance the curriculum, bring it to life, et cetera. I'll take that information. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Jackie. I'd love to make anything to make science fun. I'm all in. Math workshops for the middle schools, Jackie D.
Yes, that was me again. Yeah, there was just, I just wanted to know exactly how that works, because I did hear some concerns from parents that their child was recommended for math workshop, but when their child went to it, it wasn't a math teacher, it was someone else, and they kind of just did work, and if the child had a question, they couldn't even help them. They were just saying, oh, we'll ask your math teacher. So it was kind of, didn't really do what they expected it to do, so I wanted to hear from you exactly what is it and what are the expectations for this particular program?
So we offer math workshop in grades 6, 7, and 8 for all of our middle school students. And it's meant to be a skills-based course. So it's not necessarily meant to mirror what's happening in the classroom on a daily basis. It's not a lab. So it's not reinforcement of a lesson that was taught or a repeat of a lesson that was already taught for clarification. The actual course is meant to hone in on students' skill set. And we use that Success Maker software and some of the materials that we looked at as a Board of Education just last month in order to identify where students are, facing challenges or facing difficulties in their skill set. And that course is meant to shore up those challenges, those difficulties, so that we're providing a remediation toward their grade level performance.
But is it true that the person in the room is not even a math person?
So I'd have to look at that a little more deeply. Was it a 6th grader that we're
Yes.
talking
Yeah,
about?
it was for 6 years.
So our sixth grade teachers are certificated as generalists, right? So they technically can teach any subject area. They are elementary teachers. And so that's likely why you had somebody who you may recognize as a math teacher or a science teacher. Although they teach sixth grade, they technically can teach any of the subject areas because of their certification area. We house them inside different curricula because that's our model as a school district. So that may be some of the challenge that you're referencing there.
It's possible, you know, that's what it is, but I'm wondering, because they are supposed to be able to do all the different content areas, they probably should have been able to assist a student if that's the case, if they weren't specifically math, because I know they cover all of those areas.
And that, you know, for that particular situation, I'd have to look more deeply into the case and into the scenario and why the help wasn't rendered. And I know that Mrs. Berger would be willing to certainly do the same, offer that assistance.
I'm going to speak from my own experience. So it usually is a math teacher. And I personally am very disappointed on how we do the math workshop in the middle school. These kids need reinforcement. So my daughter was in the math workshop in sixth grade. We, as collectively as parents from that class, asked her to start reinforcing what was going on in the classroom. My daughter's grades went from low to all 90s throughout sixth grade until COVID hit. In seventh grade, she struggled again, and at the time COVID, we didn't have workshops. But then they created one because of the fact that many kids were struggling. They did not reinforce what was going on in the classroom, no improvement. Eighth grade, I allowed her to go in again. She watched videos, no reinforcement. If a kid is struggling in the subject, and I'll just say, you know, and I'm just going to say adding, and I'm obviously in the middle school, it's not adding, but if you're struggling in adding, you should be reinforcing adding. Not, oh, you're struggling in algebra, but let me teach you 1 + 1. I get you want to do the basic skills, but the child is struggling in algebra, not 1 + 1. It did nothing. So when she got to the high school, I did not allow my daughter to go into the workshop. I signed her out. I spoke to Ms. Berger about this. She has now convinced me that in the high school it's a different process and they will reinforce what is going on in the classroom. I will see this year if that is correct. But we really need to revamp the middle school workshop, because I can tell you that I called last year, you know, in eighth grade, the watching videos, adding 1 + 1 and doing these things. I don't care if it's my child or any child. When you're in there for extra help. I was paying for tutoring, as it's been discussed. They created in seventh grade because I shouldn't be paying hundreds of dollars for tutoring when we have a workshop. But if the workshop is not going to reinforce the classroom, I don't see any child being able to improve. And I can see the difference between the sixth grade teacher who listened collectively to the parents and did reinforce and how the grades went up. I think if you start from a younger age and did sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade and reinforced it, kids might have a better understanding by the time they get to high school and have the tougher math classes to deal with. And again, this is just my opinion, but I do think it's something that as a district we should look into.
I hear you loud and clear, and I will join that conversation with Ms. Poppy and Ms. Berger. We will have it sooner than later, and we will begin to look at, you know, it's good learning for me, and if there's an area that needs to be enhanced, we don't have to wait years to do it. We will look at it immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Printed calendar, Jackie Napolitano. Vernal.
I had noticed on social media and also listening to a bunch of parents that had spoken to me, I absolutely love the printed calendar. And I don't know if you remember, Jesse, a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, I brought it up to Linda and I wanted the printed calendar again. And I remember it being a financial issue and the issue of the organizing it. It was, I remember there was like a twofold. So I just wanted to see if we could look into what we could do to bring that back, if it's something we can bring back, if it's fiscally responsible to bring it back. Like I said, I actually looked into, I still had a calendar from like 30 years ago that my mother kept, because when I was a child, I was in it. Like, kids like that, you know, we would take pictures, we would send it out, it had all the information on it. And I do know that most people are techie, I'm not one of them, as most of you know. But I do like the idea of advocating for bringing something like that back. I was told this morning from your office, that if people wanted a printed copy, that they would print it right here at CO, a colored copy. I know that it would be paper, and I know, you know, the calendar is actually half and half on one page. I don't know if there's a way for us to make it where the calendar be on one page, each page. Like I said, I'm just coming up with some ideas. I would love to sit down and brainstorm, but first have Mr. Hauser find out for us financially, because I know that that was the piece. I remember this was gone before I got on the school board, because I remember saying, oh, I love the calendar, and everybody's like, I remember the old super said to me, you can love it, but this is how much it costs, this is how much you have to organize it, it was a lot of, and she did tell me also that there was a lot of changes throughout the year. Like last year, for instance, we had graduation issues, we moved, you know, I one of the middle school graduations, but I feel like that's something you could send out a piece of paper and say, hey, change this on your calendar at home. Or I know that a lot of people aren't too happy with that everything has gone paperless. I know that's the trend. I know everybody's doing it. I tend to still like to get my kids' report cards. You can call your kid's school if you like, and you can still get them sent to you. I do. I just think that for people who like it tangible, it's a nice thing. And since other schools are still doing it, I just want to know, what is the reason that ConnectBot stopped? Is it the financial piece? Is it the organizing piece? I never really got an answer. Those were the things that were told to me word of mouth.
All right, so we'll certainly get you whatever the financial breakdown is in terms of, you know, print calendar, and obviously you have black and white, you have color, mailing cost, you know.
It was always black and white, I think.
Yeah, so I'm going to guess, because, you know, I've worked in other places, it's a combination of some cost savings and also, you know, going green. And listen, you see me with a marble notebook here. And so I understand. So certainly we'll get this information for the Board of Education, and it can be a conversation, and you can give us the direction you'd like to go into for the 24-25 school year.
Because there are a lot of parents that I was surprised to see so many that wanted, like they wanted to come back, versus I thought there would be more people saying, hey, you know, go green, or you know, Jackie, just go online, you can print it yourself, you know, but I don't like that.
Yeah.
I would prefer if we can look into that. If we have the money to do it, is it something we could do?
Or even if we can just do it by request only. Because I know for myself, I live on my phone. I upload the district calendar to my Google Calendar, and everything gets synced. If anything gets changed on the Google Calendar, it updates my own calendar. So for me, I think the digital way, so I personally wouldn't want a paper copy, I would just throw it out. So I think that would be a waste. So I think maybe we could do it by request only. I know that there's a lot of changes that go on throughout the year too, and when they get updated, you know, so I think by request would be, and just get the financials on how much that.
I wonder even if we did like a simple survey to find out if because you don't know. Because look, you are very techie. We had this discussion. You've had to help me several times even on my cell phone. You've had to help me. So I mean, I've said to people, maybe look and see, because some people told me even online that it's not even about not being techie. Some people just like having it that they can write on and stuff like that.
The district website used to be very cumbersome. It used to be very hard to navigate. It has changed, and it's a lot easier to access a lot of the different districts. You can upload whatever calendar to whatever school. I happen to upload all the schools just so that I could be in the know of what's going on with all the schools. But you can pick and choose what schools you want, what meetings you want to go to. You can upload the Board of Ed, whatever. The website has been revamped. It is much easier to navigate. Everything is there. But if you're not tech savvy, or if you just don't want to do it, it's a little harder. But
I'm definitely a fan of the paper too, but it has something to do with being tech savvy or not, I just like that same thing. What if we printed it but didn't mail it, and they have to pick it up at central office if they want it, and then that saves that expense of the postage? And again, not for everybody, but, a survey
Right, that's
may
a
be
great
cautioned.
idea too.
100 of them and see if they go. A survey, I do think a survey, it's an email, costs nothing.
Well, that's
You know?
why I even said, what about even putting them at schools? Like, okay, we'll give 100 to Cherokee, give 300 to the high school. I mean, I honestly could see parents, and maybe I'm wrong, so that's why I say
No,
survey.
100%. If you
maybe
leave them in
younger
the
kids.
lobbies as the students come and go, or parents drop off their kids, they could come to central office, come pick up a copy.
And I'm okay with going a cheaper route and going black and white. I don't think we need to make everything color printed, as that makes it a lot more expensive. But again, I feel like there was a reason it stopped. Again, I know it was before my time, so it's definitely more than 4 years ago. Because it was something that I had asked about at least 2 years ago, and the super told me absolutely not, that it was fiscally an issue, and,
All right, we'll get the board that information so an informed decision can be made.
Thank you. All right, I'm now going to open the floor for the first public comment portion of the agenda. This is for the consent agenda items only. There will be another public comment period at the end of the meeting. Does anybody have a question or comment on a consent agenda item only? Okay. So I will call individuals forward one at a time. Please wait for my acknowledgement before stepping to the podium. Any person wishing to address the board shall address the board president only. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and relate to consent agenda items only. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for one or more topics. Individual employees, parents, or children should not be identified by name, title, position, grade, or building. The use of foul language and threatening comments will not be tolerated, and the board will consider a recess until order is restored. In accordance with policy 1230, the public comment will not exceed 30 minutes. If there are additional persons wishing to speak, the board may consider a motion to extend the time. Person number 1.
I have a specific question about the Eastern Suffolk BOCES budget, and then a related question off of that. The specific question was, I see that the career and technical education, there's a quantity and a unit cost. And the quantity is 127, and I assume that's the amount of students that we send to BOCES. But then the line below it is the career and tech ed transportation, and that quantity share is only 20. And I know that every student who goes to CTE programs takes the bus. So why is there a difference?
I can answer that. So the 127, just to clarify, it's not the exact number of students who actually attend. It's a rolling, I believe it's a 3-year average. That's how BOCES calculates the cost to the district. BOCES does provide through a third-party transportation vendor. If we would like to use their vendor, we use our own in-house transportation, or if we need to, we can use Suffolk Transportation. So it's possible, if you saw a very small building there for the BOCES, it might be a very isolated situation with a particular student that needs a unique transportation mode to get to a particular school.
Okay, so the related question that I have is, I know that there are some districts that have CTE programs housed within their home schools. Has Connecticut looked into that? Would that help with the cost of BOCES, or would there still be the similar costs to run the program? And would that also help with promoting the BOCES program within Connecticut, which I don't think that we do that great of a job with right now? And would it help students who might think, okay, I want to go to PM BOCES, but then I can't do sports because I don't get back in time to do sports?
So you asked a few questions.
I know. You know I love this topic.
So we have explored onboarding opportunities for different CTE programs, but we haven't done so recently, and certainly not with Dr. Senamore's leadership. And so that may be a conversation for the near future in terms of reconsidering the programs that are particularly attractive to our students and making determinations whether we have the facility capacity and the capability to house them within the district. In terms of the promotion of the availability of CTE programming for our students to participate in, that occurs through our high school guidance department. And there is some effort in order to allow students to receive information about what the BOCES offer, the different BOCES offer through their programming. There's an orientation that students and their parents are invited to attend, an informational session that kind of follows suit. And at that point, certain information is shared about the programs, information that is unique to the programs that may impact, to your point, a student's scheduling decisions for that school year, or for the following school year, I should say. And so we do make efforts internally in order to keep students and parents realistically in the know about what they're getting into through this programming. But I'm proud to say that I think this year we were at just over 140 students who are attending BOCES programs. And to Mr. Hauser's point, BOCES uses that 3-year average. And that certainly far exceeds, I know, some of our neighboring districts in terms of what's allowable and supported by their budgets. So we do feel very fortunate to be able to send many students to these programs, and we're always considering, okay, how do we make that promotional process a little bit easier, a little bit more clear for students and for their parents when they're making these considerations.
I'm glad to hear that, because I know there was a challenge with the open house this past year.
Yes, there was.
Where there was no transportation during the
Yes.
day, and the kids were told, oh, just go to the evening one, and parents work, kids can't go, so.
That was certainly frustrating,
Yeah.
and we tried to work with BOCES on a later start time for that particular event, and unfortunately, they weren't able to accommodate us. That speaks to some of our transportation shortages that I know that you're aware of, and likely many people at this table and in this room are aware of. But we did try our best to communicate with BOCES ahead of time that we were thinking that we would likely have concerns or issues with transporting our students so that they could have that experience. And so unfortunately, the end result was the next best thing was the following day, an evening program for students and parents. It's nice to have that double dip where students receive the exposure up front and they're able to say, oh, I'm really interested in the cosmetology program. And then maybe the following night they go back with their parents and guardians to explore that specific program. So that was a challenge and a difficulty this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2?
I have a couple of questions. How many grant writers does Connecticut have?
That is a good question. And did we just ask that? We just asked that, actually.
We do not have grant writers.
Okay, so my next question is, why not? Why don't we have freelance grant writers where it costs us nothing, okay? They're out there, they're hungry, and they essentially eat what they kill.
Sarah,
You know what I
I'm
mean? So
going to
there-
jump in just because I did recently ask this question of the superintendent about having the grant writer for that reason, that, it's free and it's commission. He is actually looking into it.
I'm not talking about one, okay? We should have several, okay? Because 90% of the stuff you guys are talking about is a monetary issue, okay? And a lot of them can be covered by grant writers. They're out there. You don't have to, they're not salaried. So it essentially costs us nothing.
I agree.
Okay, they'll work harder because it's, as I said, they'll, eat what they kill,
Right.
so to
He
speak.
he is looking into this. It was brought up, because I agree that, we could be bringing in money that we don't even realize is out there. So hopefully, maybe next meeting, we'll have an update for you. Because
Maybe we'll have some. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
because it doesn't cost us anything. They can work from home. You don't have to house them. This is a big thing.
I agree.
Okay. My next question is, with what you guys were talking about with the math, and the IEPs and the 504s.
I'm sorry, was that on the consent agenda? Did you have
I
it?
think you guys were just talking about it, weren't you?
No,
About the CPI and teachers going out.
but those were the board discussions. That
So
wasn't on
that's
the
not-
consent
that's not-
agenda.
That's not something we can ask questions about?
No, you can during the regular comment period. This is for consent agenda items.
I was under the impression that if you were talking about it, we could come up and then.
No, you
Ask.
100% can during the regular board discussion, during the regular comment period. This was just for consent agenda items. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything about the consent agenda? Okay, moving on. So personnel matters. Item number 33 has been removed from the certified personnel schedule for a separate vote. So can I get a motion and a second to approve the certified personnel schedule as amended and the non-certified personnel schedule as presented?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Is there a motion to approve item 33 from the certified personnel schedule in a second?
I'd like to speak before the vote, which is if we have questions, so.
The motion should be placed on a table before any discussion. So if there is a motion, that should be done first.
So I need a motion and a second to approve item 33 from the certified personnel schedule.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
This is for baseball at the high school. Over the years, I've had a high level of expectation for varsity coaches. I would be remiss if I did not give credit to Connecticut's many amazing coaches at all levels. Under contractual obligations, teachers are the first to be offered the opportunity to coach if they choose to do so. I have never voted to not follow a contractual obligation. I have respected union contracts and agreements, knowing I myself appreciate being part of a union that advocates for fairness and for employee benefits, etc. Tonight, though, that being said, as a board member, I must always vote in the best interest of students and this community, and continue to put kids first above all else. In doing so, therefore, I am voting no to this position appointment, and I am going to vote with the kids and hope that this year, regardless if this goes through, that I will see accountability and that people will be doing their best to put kids first.
Thank you. So I guess we'll do a roll call vote on number 33. Ms. Iannatelli?
Yes.
Ms. DiLorenzo?
I really don't have a history on this situation. I really don't want to, I'm going to abstain because I don't think I have enough information to go one way or the other. I'm going to abstain from this.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Napolitano, for you're a no, correct?
I'm a no.
I am a yes. Mr. Murphy?
I'm a yes.
Motion carries.
Can I just speak to?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to speak to an item that the board did unanimously approve in terms of the full personnel agenda. On tonight's personnel agenda, we approved a very familiar name and face to our community, Miss Lisa Farrell. She is gracious enough to have remained with us throughout the summer, and in terms of being the interim principal at Duffield Elementary School. And that search for her successor really does continue. We're not ready to name someone. Obviously, a principal appointment is a major decision, and we're not there yet in terms of the process. And Ms. Farrell is excited and gracious enough to be able to remain with the district and her building in an interim capacity through the end of December, which will provide some a nice continuity with a familiar name and face. At the time when she retired, she didn't realize that she would be kind of remaining in this capacity. And so there is a little bit of a scheduling conflict, and it happens to be the first 2 weeks of school. So also with tonight's appointment, we have a substitute principal essentially that's going to cover the building for those first couple of weeks of school. A seasoned, experienced, retired intermediate elementary principal out of the Kings Park School District named Mr. Rudy Massimo, and Mr. Massimo and Ms. Farrell have already begun that articulation in preparation for the opening of school. Certainly upon her return, they will be able to transition as well. Again, it's for a 2-week period, happens to be for the first 2 weeks of school. The building will be in great hands during those 2 weeks. I obviously, as well as all 10 of our schools, I'll be a frequent flyer in all the buildings. I know Ms. Poppy will as well. And I know Ms. Farrell will be putting out as part of her welcome back letter to the parents at Duffield, she will include, this component in that letter as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So can I call for a motion and a second to approve items 2 through 11 of the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I can still ask a question. I have a question about one of them.
Oh, sure, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. All right, so I had a question about item, let's see which number 9, Riverside Insights Professional Development Contract. Okay, when I looked into, this and I saw that the contract was for a COGAT, somebody for, to do this screening. Just to explain what I want to make sure that I understand this. This is what I learned about it, so please correct me if I'm wrong with any of this. COGAT is a cognitive abilities test which measures reasoning ability and compares it to a national sample of students, determines how well the student reasons, how well does the student reason abstractly compared to other students at the same age. And the screening offers content to measure general and abstract inductive and deductive problem solving across 3 areas, which they call batteries: verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal, or figural reasoning. So it's a universal screening tool to help teachers determine areas of strengths and weaknesses with regard to reasoning. It comes as a score with 3 parts. The first part describes the student's typical performance across those 3 batteries. The second part describes the patterns of performance. Basically, are they across the 3 batteries? Are they the same? Are there differences? How close are they? And the third part tells the educator what the student's areas of strengths are and what their weaknesses are. So it's basically done, from what I understand, it's a universal screener to help determine student placement. I did see one peer-reviewed article that stated that COGAT is one of the two most common nonverbal measures used in gifted identification. And they really have just begun exploring using COGAT to determine relationships using those scores and demographics in high English language learning populations versus large urban high minority low socioeconomic status populations. I got that right from a peer-reviewed article. So I did also find that, there are many different parts that I saw to this Riverside Insights. They do have an SEL program, which is aligned to the CASEL framework, and I know CASEL is very much basically culturally responsive pedagogy. They are right in line with that. Not that we are taking that program. They call it the DESA suite. We're not using that. So again, it's just a part of I want to make sure that there is oversight and to see exactly what this person is doing for professional development. I see we have a contract for 500, and again, if they are going to veer off, and because the screening looked fine, it did, and they're not going to veer off from that, and they're going to do what they are being hired to do. I don't 500, it's not, but I just want to make sure that they're keeping students first and all that. Thank you.
So the theme of quality control. So Ms. Poppy will arrange, a meeting with the professional developer, and I will join that meeting, and I will, reiterate, focus on this area, with regards to training on staff in the X's and O's, and as I like to say, although I borrow it from Warner Brothers, don't make a left at Albuquerque. Okay.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Did I describe what it is? Because I don't want to give out, that's what I learned from
So we are proposing this consultant services contract or agreement because this was the universal IQ screener that we're using for student candidacy in our Sequest program. That was part of our reimagination of the program that occurred last year. This was one criterion for student entry. It was an agreement that our children would be screened with a device. We chose the COGAT, and we would use a baseline score for consideration of their entry into the program. As we have some administrative shifts within our ranks, the overseeing administrator is leaving their desk, and the thought is that we'll need to be able to train a new administrator in the use of this particular software to be able to read the reports and understand the reports. In addition, we'd like to train our 2 Sequest teachers so that they're able, as end users only, to be able to read the reports, to manage the reports, and to work with their enrollment numbers in real time. And so that's the purpose of this agreement. It's truly end user so that we know how to look at the product, look at the software, and be able to engage with the reports to receive the information that we're seeking for enrollments in Sequest.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay, I will now open the floor for the open public comment portion of the agenda. I will call individuals forward one at a time. Please wait for my acknowledgement before stepping up to the podium. You should have received a number card from security on your way in. If you have not, please see a security guard in the back of the room. Any person wishing to address the board shall address the board president. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and relate to school matters only. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for one or more topics. Individual employees, parents, or children should not be identified by name, title, position, grade, or building. The use of foul language and threatening comments will not be tolerated, and the board will consider a recess until order is restored. In accordance with policy 1230, public comment will not exceed 30 minutes. If there are additional persons wishing to speak, the board may consider a motion to extend the time. Person number 1. Pass. Number 2. 3.
Just because you guys were talking about it, how long have we known that Mrs. Farrell was retiring?
I believe she gave notice last January?
More than
January.
6 months?
Yes.
We get that this is a problem, right? We're taking her out of retirement. That means that we have to pay certain funds to her as well. So keeping her on, and I think she's wonderful where she didn't retire. Having said that, it's an exorbitant fee for this school, okay? And having that much time, I'm thinking maybe we should have had a principal picked. Just saying that.
Can I respond to that?
Absolutely.
It's actually less than if we paid a principal. She's being paid less.
Is she
Money.
retiring Tier 1A?
No, she's not a tier 1 individual, no.
Okay. All right. Can I have an update on the Thunderbird? And what we're doing with that? It's going around the community that we're getting rid of it. Is that true?
So I will provide a bit of an update and some clarity. So New York State basically told all school districts who have a indigenous Native American mascot name, symbolism, that they have to change. There wasn't a lot of guidance and communication with regards to that. This was right around the April-May time period. We have a local state senator, Senator Wyke, who has so far organized 2 meetings with impacted school districts across Long Island, elected officials, and at the last meeting also had representation from some of our indigenous Native American, nations, particular to Long Island. Absent from this has been any representation from the state. And so, yes, Connecticut is one of the districts that the state is expecting that we will work towards changing the Thunderbird. And what we're trying to get is an audience with the state. That's what Senator Wyke is trying to organize. Other state senators on the island, other assembly people. But we really need a dialogue. The communication to school districts has not been crisp from the state. We really want to enter into a dialogue with them. And so that's where we are right now in the process. There was a resolution that the board passed at the end of the school year referencing a committee. That committee will, at some point in the near future be convened, but we're trying to work with our elected officials, and we are trying to work with the state on getting some clarity. And so that's where we are right now in this process.
Okay, so my concern is I'm part Native American, okay? And it's a kind of reverential symbol. Connecticut is not a town, it's not Sayville, it's not Ronkonkoma, it's not even Ronkonkoma is of Native American, background. This is something that's a symbol, if not all, most, if not all tribes, okay? This is a reverential symbol. This is not something where you have an Indian, on a sports team. This is, our name is Connecticut, okay? We have Native American background with this. This isn't, you know what I mean? I hope we're really gonna fight this because we've had it since the inception of Connecticut. So this is a major thing. I mean, it's not just, I hope we're taking this seriously. We're not just getting rid of it until we get approval. I think, am I wrong about this? Or you guys on board
Well,
with
Dr.
this?
Centimore has definitely been working actively to try to preserve the
So
name.
You guys are with this. You want to keep it. You're looking to keep it.
Yeah,
Because this
so
is not
all of
something
Long
that's
Island
making
is,
symbol.
there's a lot of Native American history on Long Island itself. And Connecticut is part of that. A lot Cherokee, a lot of our buildings are named
Right.
after it. So he has been working with the senator, and we are actively trying to look at all avenues to preserve our name.
I think at the very least, we can keep this and state that this is not something in a mocking fashion. As I said, it's a reverential thing to most, if not all.
I just want to add, I am working with a bunch of different board members on my own with them, because we did this years ago when we worked with, when we had the mask mandates and all that. And I was invited in to also work with them to share ideas on what other districts are doing. And other districts are fighting it.
They are.
Other districts are fighting it, and they have invited to sit in on their Zooms to see what they're doing, just so that we can collectively bring back ideas to other, to our districts if we want. So they've allowed me to sit in, and they are gonna fight it. There are people that are gonna fight it.
Good.
Let me just add to that because I think it's important. Please don't misconstrue, and I'm glad that we're on camera, please don't misconstrue my level-headed approach
No, I like
to
that.
a lack of passion, especially about this topic. As superintendent of schools, I'm part of this outreach to the state through Senator Wyke's effort, and so I do not want to present a confrontational mannerism.
Right.
Okay? But to the 40,000 people of Connecticut, I, on behalf of our district, am very passionate about this. And that's why we're trying to have a direct dialogue to delay this process and try to bring some more, district specific. Because, one of the issues with the state is they painted this broad brush, this stroke, that every district that has any kind of connectivity with their mascot to indigenous Native American population, names can be very different depending on on what it is and their
I
connotations.
don't know that
This
Great River, which
this
is what Connecticut means, is a.
the symbol and the symbolism, and some of the argument that we get is, well, districts this has been on the books and the works for 21, 22 years. Yes and no. And that timeline last year that districts were given to work things out and come up with something, most school districts, there wasn't a lot of clarity. And so what we're trying to do, in a very calm, meticulous fashion, through our representation and cohesively, especially on Long Island, because there is so many impacted districts, is to enter into a dialogue. So I know state officials, they get to see and hear via YouTube, board meetings across Long Island, certainly Connecticut. I'm hoping that they're listening and they're watching, because we really, please reach out to Senator White, Senator Rhodes, other people, and say, I'm hoping the state send somebody down from Albany to engage us in a dialogue. Delay this, engage us in a dialogue. Listen, we want to embrace the opportunity to enhance educational opportunities. We want to further celebrate and enhance the Native American indigenous history on Long Island, history in Connecticut. We want to honor and respect, our Native American indigenous populations. And we did hear from them in this last meeting how that has not always been the case. Listen, we know American history, going back pre-colonial days. It's not a wonderful history. It's very tragic with a lot of groups in our nation, Native Americans including. There's no changing those horrible things that happen. But what we're trying to do is say, hey, it's 2023. We want to honor, remember, celebrate, respect this history. And we want to work with our local indigenous Native American populations to do that, to do it the right way.
I kind of think it speaks for itself. We have the names of schools, the name of our district. I mean,
And you bring up great points. One of the points that I raised in conversation, and others as well, is that towns don't have to change their name. You don't have to change the name of schools, like Cherokee doesn't have to change their name. You don't have to change street names. So there's an inconsistency there.
Yeah.
There's also an inconsistency in terms of, one part of the state, they have a warrior name, but that really is connected to a different cultural background, so they could keep their name. Or maybe another town, maybe a couple of years ago, they were a little bit proactive in making some adjustments, so they're fine. One of my concerns is, let's say the state says you have to do this, and whatever the board decides to do in terms,
That's Air Force, isn't he?
Let's say the state says you have to do it, and then the board has to decide what legal remedies there may or may not be, whether or not there's a cost impact, if we get to that point. One of my concerns then, as superintendent of schools, is, okay, we have to do this, there's really not a legal remedy, so let's get this committee together, cross-constituent, we agree upon a name change and an image change, and the state says, nope. So then where are we? I call it the Oppenheimer effect. We have a big mushroom cloud, okay? So I think Senator White's approach with the other representatives across the island, with the other impacted school districts, is the right approach right now. Let's engage the state in dialogue. And it would be good that there was a little bit more pressure on the state. And again, I know they're seeing this and they're hearing from me the first time I'm a new superintendent to the district. We want to work with you. We want to work with you. We want to honor, respect, celebrate the history of Long Island, the history of our local community in terms of our Native American and indigenous population.
I have two more questions, quick. For the past 25 years, this district has kind of gone with what I like to call fads of learning. Literacy Collaborative is one example. Have y'all thought about, discussed and or thought about going back to basics? A lot of the private schools are doing that. And the reason why I ask this is because math being a major issue, it's almost counterintuitive the way they're teaching from an early age all the way through to high school. It's confusing, it's ridiculous, you're still getting the same answer, but the kids are confused. You need more people, more teachers going out learning, okay, once a week, twice a week sometimes, to come back. And they never, before the next fad comes, they usually last anywhere from 8 to 10 years. Then the next fad comes in, and we have a problem. Then we have to start, be at LRM, and have to start all the way back at A. Okay? And the kids, it's costing $1 gazillion, and the kids, you know, they're the ones who are suffering. This is a hard, and it's constant. And Connecticut is right up at the top of jumping onto that bandwagon of the next thing. So I just requesting that you all think about going back to basics. Not only are you going to save money, the kids will be better off.
Thank you.
Ask your kids what a verb is. That's a problem.
Thank you. I will definitely take that into consideration. Number 4.
Good evening. I wanted to take a minute to talk to you about the BOCES.
Can you just go into your microphone?
Sorry.
Sorry. No, that's okay. Just so the
Can you
people
hear
at
me
home
now?
can hear you.
Is that better? Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to come here and just say what a wonderful program the BOCES Connecticut Summer Enrichment Program is. My daughter went last year. It was held at Duffield, and she loved it so much we signed her up again this year. And it was held at Sycamore. And each day when my daughter got up, she was excited to go to the program. She always had a huge smile on her face when she came home. They do a lot of things like reading, creative writing, STEM, math, sports, arts and crafts, a talent show, field trips to places like the Cradle of Aviation and Heckscher State Park, as well as an end of the summer carnival. And these are just some of the great opportunities given to our kids at Connecticut. The staff working with the children are outstanding. I'm a teacher myself in William Floyd. I recognize talent when I see it. They're wonderful. They are caring, conscientious, and enthusiastic. And this program is wonderful and affordable. And I just want to, let everybody know, I priced out the summer camp in other places, very expensive. It's affordable for our families, and I would like to see this continue. So thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you for sharing your experience, and I'm glad you had a great experience with it. Thank you so much. Number 5.
Good. We had a grant writer, and the person was very unsuccessful. I believe that. Working? Okay. I think one of the teachers at one time did get a grant. There's very little grant money out there to begin with, because I got a grant recently. They just don't give you money because you want money. First of all, you have to have a project. And let's say that project cost $10,000. They will insist that you have $5,000 on hand, and they'll give you another $5,000. Then the project has to be something that they're interested in. If they're not interested in what you want to do, forget about it. But there is some money out there. Right here on Long Island, there is the Lion Gardner Foundation, that maybe if you do have a project, you should look into them. Now, they have very strict requirements, usually with the money that they give away. And the Lion Gardner Foundation has an enormous amount of money, but you have to have a project. And a nonprofit that I do work for, we got a sizable grant from them, but they have very strict rules, and they're entitled to have the rules because they're giving you money. You have to account for everything. You have to account. You have to account for everything that you spend. You have to have, of course, receipts, and you have to have canceled checks. It's not an easy area to get money from, but there is this Lion Gardner Foundation. If you have a project, and they're right here on Long Island, I think they take applications about twice a year. that they review. But it's worth looking into if some teacher has a project, but also you have to have usually half the money. And they'll give you the other half. Why these are the rules of these foundations, that they just don't give money away because you want money. That's basically how it works.
Thank you. Stair number 6.
I don't know if this is 6, I just have one more statement to make, and it's about grant money. There's so much untapped money out there. It's shocking, okay? And I'm not talking about hiring Aunt Betty to do the grants. There are people that do it for a living. What it comes down to is writing it properly, okay? And there are people, and the incentive is you get a big percentage if you write it and you get us this grant, okay? Once again, you eat what you kill, and it works, okay? You don't have to have one, you can have several, okay? That's all I'm saying. Something really to look into. A lot of money.
Yes, thank you. We're definitely going to explore that avenue. So, does anybody else have anything? I think everybody. All right. We are going to enter into executive again, so I am going to call for a motion and a second for the Board of Education to move into executive session in accordance with Open Meetings Law, Section 105, employment history of a particular person's.
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. We are actually not coming back to public because we're not voting on anything. We just have items to discuss. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.